enjoy talking to choreographers because they all come from a very different background. You
Hmm.
started with dance and baton twirling and then got into martial arts. How has all this like come together for you to become a choreographer? Because choreography is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I was always a really artistically creative kid. And I think that's why I navigated my life through those different steps. Like I started with baton, got into dance, and then I moved to Vancouver to be a dancer and got into circus. And so I was choreographing circus shows. And then eventually I was just following the breadcrumbs of where a performing arts career would take me. And then it landed me into film and martial arts. And because I had such a diverse schedule or a diverse background of movement, it just sort of became a no-brainer for me to be able to put all the pieces together in a way that's become a cohesive part of my career. And yeah, it really comes from a place of me really just needing to be creative in my life. That's one of the biggest joys of my life. And this is the perfect way. I love to move. I got some skills. I can put that all together and share it with other people.
Definitely. And there is no real class to doing choreography. You just kind of, like you said, put a bunch of your skills together to make it happen.
Yeah.
Uh, and from the projects you've done, they've been amazing projects. And I don't think many people understand that a great choreographed fight scene does feel like it's a dance. It's a
Yeah.
movement between two people. How do you begin to do the choreography for a fight? Because they
Mm-hmm.
can be difficult. You need to be safe. You need to
Yeah.
have realistic movements. How do you begin that process?
Yeah, for me, my process is I don't like to pre-choreograph. But what I do is I will find inspiration as I'm like preparing for the day. I'll watch things, I'll listen to things, I'll sort of like do my own daydreaming of like what would be like an ideal fight or scene that we're putting together. And then on the day, for me, it's really important to be really present because the people who show up, the people that you're working with, they're all going to be at different points in their days in their lives. Everybody's got emotions and outside things. And so it's about just being super present in the room and not second guessing the impulses. And what I really love about choreography is it's a bit of a science experiment. You're going to try a bunch of things and then you're just sort of going to pick the best option or the most fulfilling option in that context of the scene. And I really enjoy working with other people. I really enjoy hearing other people's ideas because that might spark another idea. And so you just sort of follow the inspiration of it. I find that in terms of choreography, having a pretty wide base of knowledge is really helpful because then you have more tools and things to pull from when you're doing the choreography. And I find it's harder for me to choreograph things where I'm not as familiar. So I'm really familiar with movement, but if somebody were to be like, okay, we're going to create a salsa dance, I haven't done a lot of salsa dance, so I'd have to do a bit of research, but then also using the people around me and their expertise, and we all sort of put the pieces together, which is a really, really fun and really fulfilling process. When you're in like with the right group of people, it's amazing when you do that, right? Because you're doing something that's so present and so in the moment, and it's artistic and creative, and so there's that satisfaction of expression that comes with it. But the biggest thing for me is just be super present and don't second guess. Like there's no bad ideas. There's ideas you might not choose, but there's no bad ideas. So try all of them on and you'll find the one that fits the best. And then you just keep doing that for each piece.
That's awesome. And I think that goes to you being such a good teacher because
Thank you.
it's one thing that I keep on reading about you, the fact that you're so in tune with people that you're able to teach them so well. Having that flexibility and knowing how to be in tune with people's, presence at that moment, does that help a lot with teaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I think teaching and choreography really go hand in hand. for me, especially working with actors. So as someone that's been an athlete and a mover my whole life, the actors that I work with aren't necessarily at that same level. They have different genius and different expertise than I do. And so when I'm choreographing for something with people who don't have the same background for me, there is that element of teaching in there, because you have to be able to not only like find the cool movement, but you have to be able to translate that to people and allow them to embody it in their own bodies so that they feel empowered and confident in it. And that's a huge piece of performing choreography, is if you feel good in the choreography, if you feel confident and you feel aware and you feel in control of your movement, then your performance is going to be fantastic. But if you're feeling at all insecure, it's going to show up in that choreography. So I do think that choreography and teaching go hand in hand. And for me, I've been teaching since I was 15 years old, and I started teaching baton, and I taught dance, and I taught in studios where I was choreographing all these dances and solos for like competition and stuff. And you have to get really good at pulling out choreography. Like every hour you're switching to something new. And that really taught me how to choreograph, but also teach at the same time. Because for me, it's always been the same thing. You come into a space, you have somebody that's leading the choreography, essentially, who is your teacher, and then you put all those pieces together. But I also don't often do lesson plans for my classes. I will often teach, because I know the material so well. I often come into the room, connect with everybody. How are you doing? Where are you at right now? What questions do you have? And then I'll lead the class in that direction based on the energy and the people I have in the room. And it's very much the same for choreography. Like there's a little bit you're going to do obviously in preparation, but what it really comes down to is that really like sweet spot of presence and just letting the creativity and the ideas flow through you. And teaching is the exact same thing.
Definitely. And in order to teach, you have to have some sort of mastery on what you do. And it seems like you're very passionate. But other than the passion for it, what's the workout routine? What do you do daily to make sure that you are, keep on honing that craft, keep on improving on yourself?
Yeah, well, I have a personal trainer, and my thing is I love movement. I am a bit of a nerd. Like if you were to look at my Instagram feed or my TikTok feed, there's a lot of like people just doing interesting workouts, like have a bummed shoulder, try this. I eat that stuff up. So I'm always engaging with movement of some kind. So I work with the trainer. I work on a lot of stability, just making sure that my body's in a really aligned place, because then I can access all the ranges of motion that may come up in a creative space. In especially for stunts, but like really any performance-based career that's based on a skill, you're training as often as you can. And I've spent most of my adult career, aside from me training when I was a kid, most of my adult career is just this gathering of skills. So when I'm not at the gym or I'm not working and not directly off, there's like martial arts training, weapons training, dance, going to yoga, going to Pilates, a lot of things to just help move the body. And like I said, like an aligned way. But the more you learn, the more you're gaining awareness in your body, the more spaces you're like, oh, I didn't know my body could do this, or I didn't know that these two movements are very complementary. Like when I started doing martial arts, when I was beginning stunts, I hadn't known before then that dance and martial arts are very complementary to each other. It's almost like they came from the same place and then had different intentions. One is the expression, the storytelling that humans need to do. And then the other one is survival. It's life and death. But at the end of the day, it's movement. So I really enjoy putting all those pieces together and just sort of following where my inspiration and where my body wants to be, because I've been an athlete for over 30 years now. So I don't necessarily move the same way as I did when I was a teenager or in my early 20s. So now it's like, it's about navigating like what's going to be best for my body, but what's also going to bring me the most fulfillment, because then I'm in a really great creative space. And I find that there's seasons of my life. So there'll be a moment where I'm like, I'm really into Muay Thai. I'm going to do some boxing and kickboxing. And then a little bit later, I'm like, okay, now I'm really into Filipino martial arts, doing weapons and knives and empty hand drills. And then maybe I'll go through a phase where I'm like, I don't need any of that. I'm just going to do some yoga and Pilates, or maybe I'm going to go back and take some ballet classes. And it's all about just moving the body in all these different ways so that I have a huge toolbox to pull from on the other side. But choreography, especially in film or on stage, is a very physical job. So you have to be physically prepared to do that. And like, for me, I don't bend the same way. Like I used to be able to pull my leg up and like pull it behind my head. I can't do that anymore. But because I used to be able to do that, I can explain that to somebody, or I know that like, oh, there's a range of motion that's available. I may not be able to, or may not want to. It's not that I can't. It's like I may not want to move like that because I want to be able to walk the next day. But because I've moved in those ranges before, I can safely show somebody how to maybe get in that range. So it's really all about creating the most versatility in your craft as possible. The more you know, the more you're able to give. And there's so much that I don't know. Like I haven't been doing martial arts for 30 years, like I've been doing dance and baton for 30 years. So for me, I think that's really exciting that there's more for me to learn. And that'll take my lifetime of continuing down that path of where I can learn. And there's ideas that I've never thought of before. And I really enjoy, like some of my students, my staff spinning students, one of my biggest things is like the creativity, like use this, like take these skills that I'm teaching you, excuse me, take these skills that I'm teaching you, but then make it your own and try things, ask yourself questions. Like I said, that science experiment, and then let them sort of discover their own creativity through that. And when I see people's videos, I'm like, oh my God, I never would have thought of that. I've been doing this for 30 years and I never thought of that. And that to me is like, that's it. Like, that's the whole, like, that's you being in like the creative flow of life. And it's so good when you're there, like when you're in that flow, like it feels so good.
You have such a beautiful attitude about things. It's incredible.
Thank you.
And you've amassed a great number of followers on social media. Having such a platform, what do you hope people get from your social media?
Yeah, I hope that people are inspired to try new things. I hope that people are following their inner curiosity. Because I like with the freestyle staff spinning thing is people don't know they want to do it until they see it and they see other people doing it. And they're like, oh, that might be fun. And I think the beautiful thing about it is it really speaks to our inner child. And like, how many people do you know there's like, oh, I wanted to be a Jedi or a superhero or a Ninja Turtle when I grew up, but then the world told me I couldn't do that. And so I hope that people can see that I'm offering a space where like you can live out your inner child's dreams, even if it's you going outside for 5 minutes and spinning a staff or watching a movie and being like, oh, I kind of get what that means. And I just hope that people can see that from me. I love teaching. It is the most fulfilling thing that I do in my life. And so I want to do more of it. It's like, you know, when they ask you like, what would you do for free? And I was like, oh, I would teach. Because if you saw me walking down the street and you had a staff in your hand and you're like, hey, wait, I'm working on this skill, I would 1000% stop and work with you for like half an hour. Obviously I want to make it my job, but yeah, I want people to feel inspired and empowered to try things. And I don't want them to feel intimidated by my videos because like I've been doing it my whole life. But like, if you were doing this for 30 years too, you'd be good. So like, just know that if you work on it, you can become me. But I just want people to feel inspired to try it and to step outside their comfort zone and try something new, try something different, be different than what everybody else is doing, walking down the street or going to the gym. But like, there's something here that really could do a lot of good for your heart. Like there's an element of playfulness in it that I think we all just need more of these days. And if it's a thing, like especially staff spinning, because that's mainly what my platforms are, like if it's just something you can go do outside for 5 or 10 minutes to just help you like take a break from the world, I'm happy to provide that. And like, I want everybody to do it. I don't know how to get everybody to do it, but I want everybody to do it.
Yeah, it seems like you're very into your body well-being and mental well-being. How important is the mental aspect of it?
I think the mental aspect is completely overlooked on its process. And I know that from having my own struggle of me. I like, for a long time, I thought that if I was just the best at what I did, physically, skill-wise, technically, that I would find fulfillment and accepting and love in my life. But what I'm realizing is there's a whole other side to it. You have to have the mental aspect there where you feel fulfilled and happy, and like, those are easier said than done, but like, there's some sort of peace that you have to find within yourself, because if not, you're always going to be searching for that validation of like, please somebody tell me I'm good enough. And I feel like a lot of my career up until the last couple of years has been that, just sort of moving from a space of trauma of just wanting to feel loved. And what I've realized is like, I almost had it backwards, because if you can get your mental and even spiritual space calm and in a space of peace, whatever peace means to you in your own body, the physical skills are going to come along with you. If you're not in the right headspace, that's usually like the times that I've been not in a great headspace are the times that I'm injured or I'm in a lot of pain, I'm really tired. And a lot of it has to do with just what are those mental thoughts and stories you're telling yourself on a regular basis. And so if my story is, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, not good enough, that may push me to keep training and keep going, but then I'm going to push myself to the point of burnout or the point of injury. And then that's not going to help my mental gain. So I actually think that the mental side of things is just as important, if not more important, than the physical side. Because if the mental side is in a balanced place, because we're not always going to be happy in sunshine and rainbows all the time. We know that. We need the contrast in order to find the good in life. But if that is in a space of balance, you're so much more present in your body. And then you're moving from a space of physical balance as well as mental balance. And then that's when you're going to find the most success and the best results. And I think everybody should be doing some sort of personal development, whether that be going to therapy or meditating. I try and meditate at least once a day, like, or at least a couple times a week. I journal a lot, just because like there's all these stories. I'm a overthinker. I have a lot of anxiety. And so for me, it's like, over time, I'm like, how can I move this energy through my body and out, so that it's not just constantly this hamster wheel of thoughts? And that's come from trial and error. But if I can at all provide a helpful space for people where they can find tools to help take care of their own mental, spiritual, physical bodies, then that's like my service to the world, essentially, is helping people find a place where they're more at peace with themselves. Because it's really, really, really scary to flip that mirror back on yourself when things are happening around you and take responsibility for your own stuff. It's a scary place, and it takes a lot of courage and a lot of mental fortitude. So if I can help provide a space for people to feel safe to do that, or just maybe even curiously poke at it a little bit, then I feel like I'm doing a good thing in the world. And I just want everybody to be happy and healthy and kind and loving and accepting. Like oh, if we could all be that, if we were all just a little bit more peaceful in our heart, I think our world would be a lot more peaceful.
Definitely. You are an incredible human being for doing that.
Try my best.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do. You are definitely a positive being in this world. So thank you for all that. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for chatting with me. It was nice to meet you.